Yeah, yeah. It's a good book so far. Glad you got me. Yeah, it's good. I mean, it's funny. It's a satire, which is what you want. Kafka ripping me to shreds before we get this thing underway. Are we we're live? Hello. Sorry about that. I was in the middle of reading a book. How rude of me. Welcome to the second episode of the Patreon live stream. Who would have believed we'd get a sequel? I did, because I announced it last week. To anyone that was listening, hopefully there are some of you here today. I need to actually go over to the live stream just to see if some of you are here. If you are on Patreon seeing this right now, best thing to do, of course, as we found with the last live stream, is to click on the thumbnail that you see on that Patreon page and move on over to the YouTube page. That way we can, take part in that chat where I see your lovely names. So far, I don't see any of you. It does say there are 2 watching, but that's probably me and Tara. So at the minute, I'm talking to myself and or my wife and or my cat, which is something I do every day. So even though you can't hear this, if you were to turn up now, you would get to hear me and interact with me in the chat pane. So that should be fun. But I'm going to keep talking because I am cognizant of the fact as well that, some of you may be joining here in a moment and that you may want to watch this back after the fact. And that's obviously something you will be able to do on Patreon later down the road. And so while we are waiting for folks to join, just a quick reminder again, and I will post one of these at the end of the video, quick reminder that those of you that aren't yet on a $5 or more pledge amount, if you would be interested in receiving postcards from Tara and myself here at the end of our trip to England, and that would be about a month from now, give or take. We can only give estimates, of course, because of the postal service. Well, you can do that by going up to the $5 tier. But those of you on the $2 tier, of course, do get these live streams, one of the perks, just for being a patron in general. What else? Well, I'll tell you what else. So coming up, I'm going to be launching something else here exclusively on Patreon, and that is going to be, well, my first Patreon podcast. And look out for that tomorrow. It is coming here and you'll get to hear it. It was just a sort of test. This was a test run. It wasn't really something I would consider, probably wouldn't consider it my polished final work necessarily. But that's okay. I think that, I want to be able to include you in the creative process. So if you have any suggestions about how we might be able to strengthen our podcasts going forward, do they need to be longer? Do they need to be more substantive, more on point, on focus? It's hard to do when you've got my brain. I just go off on tangents and all of that. Let me know, let me know in the comments below. Once those videos do indeed post. So at the moment, it's now saying there's only one person watching. That would be me. So I'm assuming that the wife has tuned out there. We've sent out the notifications. I think there've been a couple of them. So hopefully you do get them, or you did get them. But really, it's an exercise in, can Lawrence talk to himself? Yes, he can. He's proven that to himself over the years, but can he talk to himself in a professional capacity? Looks like we do now have 2 watching. Is one of them you?
I don't think so.
Okay, who is watching? Let yourself be known, and if so, you can do so in the chat down the right hand side. And I believe there's also the comment section, the regular comment section below, though I would highly recommend using the chat just because that's where I'm more likely to see you. I'm going to quickly turn to Tara in the control studio to see if anything's come in on Patreon itself.
I'm trying really hard to see, but it feels like our internet is going really slowly. So there might very well be people watching you, and I just don't see them yet.
Okay.
So sorry, guys, if there are people there and we just don't see you. Hopefully at some point very soon, I'll actually be able to pull something up and get some stuff started for you. In the meantime, I am really excited to be doing our second live stream just for patrons.
Yeah, so we, and I know that we'd sort of come to an informal agreement on it being Sundays and that being this time of night on a Sunday, and that seemed to work last week when we had a good bunch of you. It's just that this week I can't, unfortunately. I'm flying out to Idaho tomorrow morning, and so we had to just push it back one day. And I know that it's been a bit of a crazy week, so I don't know that we were quite as open about that, or at least I didn't do my part on social media, I think is what I'm trying to say, in getting the word out there. So apologies for that. I will try to be better about that, but I'm just going to go to the post now, and I'm going to have to go back in time. It looks like we've...
All right, it does look like we have Hooded Cobra.
All right, Hooded Cobra, Commander 788, I'm here, and potato emergency in Idaho. I don't personally have a potato emergency out there. In fact, I'm rather looking forward to consuming said potatoes in the form of fries and fry sauce, because that's what they have, right? But I did read something very fascinating this week on, what was it? It was on twistedsifter.com, right? And they always put these sort of interesting things that are happening around the world. And one of those is that there is a gigantic potato. I don't think it's real, because there's no such thing as a potato of this size, that's been hollowed out into an Airbnb, and you can stay inside this potato just south of Boise. So I'm gutted in a way, because I've already booked my hotel. Otherwise, I would have done that and filmed it and made such an extravaganza and probably eaten the potatoes. Just want to confirm, actually, since Hooded Cobra Commander 788, you are the first person on by the looks of it. Can you hear me? And I realize that if you can't hear me, you can't answer that question. But if you can hear me, you can answer that question. So that might give me some indication. I
also think that there might be a couple other people watching as well. They just haven't said hello yet, or the internet is still being ridiculously slow.
Well, be that as it may, I'm going to have to abbreviate your name, I think, Hooded Cobra Commander 788. Otherwise, it's going to lose us a lot of time the more I say that. So what is it? It's HCC 788. Easy. HCC 788. That's actually harder. It's more of a mouthful. So good to know. And hello from Wichita, Kansas. This is Karen, who's just joined as well. Excellent. Hello. And it looks like we've got 5 watching. I think that's actually just 3 watching, because as I said when I was talking to myself at the beginning, there was just me and Tara on. And as far as I know, my cat doesn't have his own laptop yet, though he might be working on building one. Which would be terrifying for all of us, I can tell you. Or here's another suggestion, or Hoodie Coco. I like that. We'll go with Hoodie Coco then.
I love that.
That's a lot easier, I think. Just for the purposes of this, it's a marvelous name. It could almost be YouTube name of the week, I think. And Karen confirms that she can hear us as well. So we're good. How are you all doing? I should say, how are you both doing at this point? Let us know, of course, in the chat what's going on in Wichita and in, well, wherever you are, Hoodie Coco. I'm just going to take a drink from a C2E2 glass. Well, while I'm waiting for any comments to come in from any of you fine folk, when I was on just a moment ago, I was trying to sort of formulate an exercise in talking to myself, and I was pointing out that this is something I do routinely, so I have much practice in that area. But I was also saying that, just coming up here in a few weeks, not even a few weeks now, we can abbreviate that down to a week and a bit. Tara and I are going to be in England, of course, and obviously we've said it a lot over the last few weeks that those of you that pledge $5 or more will be getting a signed postcard. Not just signed, it will include a personalized message from Tara and myself. And I just want to sort of put this out there, just as a sort of set the expectation, as it were. You'll probably, start receiving those in about a month's time. We're looking at sort of early June, we think, depending on, of course, on the mail service, and we'll see how that goes. But just wanted to keep you updated on that. Those of you that pledge $2 or less than $5, of course, you still get access to these live streams. So hopefully that is a perk worth seeing. I see there are more comments coming in from Karen. And what did we decide on? I've forgotten it already because I'm well behind. Hoodie Coco, thank you.
And Mrs. Hoodie Coco is delaying the food so that I guess they can watch. But that said, he said it's more like she's not picking up the food, so he's going to have to. So I don't know.
Okay.
Which version of the argument is it? We're going to have to find out.
We'll see. But Hoodie Coco did confirm that they are in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma. I love that name. I suspect is it connected to kind of Native American history? I don't know. Don't know much about Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, but of course, Oklahoma on our list of states to visit. It's one that we haven't yet got to, so we will get down to there eventually. Let's see what else have we got here. Karen says, I'm doing well and excited to see you. And Tara, hi. Yes, hi. Tara is, of course, not on camera. She's over there. I could ask you to come over. There's lots of lights in the way at the minute, so it's kind of hard for you to get around. At some stage, our plan is to get me on camera with you guys, but we just don't have a second camera yet to be able to do that. We will if you keep being patrons, so just be patient. It's going to happen. We just have to figure out how that's going to work. We have to get the camera first. So yeah, don't worry, it's coming. We'll get you on. We'll get you on for sure. Let's see. Let's see. There's lots of comments. So I've got to just quickly scroll down. Let's see.
Do you remember what the name of that article was from Twisted Sifter?
It was literally just about the big potato in Idaho. So I think if you go there now and just scroll down a few, you'll see it, I think. Okay. So let's see. We've got a few comments here. Again from Karen, I went to Yorkshire in 2004. I absolutely loved it. Yorkshire is a fabulous county, largest in the UK, I believe. And, people often mistake me for being from Yorkshire. I'm actually from Lincolnshire. It's the county just south of it. But Yorkshire's full of natural splendor. And, lots of interesting towns and cities too. We're interested to visit, of course, the capital of York. Let's see. This is again from, I'm forgetting it. Hoodie Coco. Thank you. My brain's all over the place. I haven't had enough vodka yet. Water. It's water, I assure you. It is. There is a lot of Native American history here. It's near Tulsa, of course. The famous Tulsa. Interesting. Yes. It's a part of the world Oklahoma I definitely want to get to. I've been to nearby Texas, but I've only been to Dallas, so that doesn't count. What I can say, probably, I think, is I've flown over Oklahoma because I flew. So last year I flew to Idaho, weirdly enough, about a year ago, and I'm doing it again tomorrow, but I'm not taking this route. But I flew to Dallas and then up to Idaho. And I think I must have gone over Oklahoma at some point, surely, unless I somehow missed it. But that seems strange to me. And just, looking down at the landscape from Dallas to Boise was one of the most mesmerizing views I've ever had. So what have we got here? Somebody called Tara Cantrell, who's that? Here's the link to the article that I mentioned, and that is about that potato. It's mental. It's so strange. Wife and I visited London. This is Hoodie Coco. The wife and I visited London and Nottingham a few years ago, visited friends. We had a great time and we'd love to get back. Yeah, no, obviously I've spoken quite a bit about London and we're going there just for a few days here in about a week. In about a week? No, just under a week, right?
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, but Nottingham is a place that I've been to many a time as well. When I was a kid, my dad, I want to lovingly say, dragged us around Sherwood Forest, but actually it was kind of interesting. I think a lot of adults say to me now that Sherwood Forest is kind of a bit dull. But when you're a kid, just sort of thinking that Robin Hood may or may not exist, and that there may be sort of references to him, or you might find clues to his former existence in there. When you're a kid, that stuff is fascinating. And I certainly did that when I was a child. And just Nottingham as a sort of city in general, I visited once when I was a student and got a little tipsy. But I was a student, so I had an excuse. And they have a pub there where the river, I think it's the River Trent, I believe, runs through the pub, actually inside the pub and out the other side. Really, really fun stuff to see. So I'm glad you brought that up. Nottingham, a fine city, and obviously has a lot of history to it, even if that is just mythological history in some regards. Did I miss any comments? I don't think so. It looks like we've got 5 watching it. I'm thinking there's someone who hasn't announced themselves. Totally fine if you don't want to. If you just want to watch. Oh, 6 now. Completely fine if you don't want to write in the comments. Just want to watch, that's absolutely fine. But if you do want to take part in this conversation, which is a rather invigorating conversation so far, you can do so in the chat to the side, or at least that's the best place, because that's where I'm going to see your comments. Tara, have we had any people writing comments on the Patreon page?
I keep on refreshing it occasionally. I haven't seen anything yet, but of course I will direct them straight here so that they can join our live stream as well. Karen, I also wanted to mention that it looked like you had been to Yorkshire in 2004. I have never been to York. I am so excited to visit York because Lawrence tells me about it all the time. So tell me in the comments where you think we should go, what your favorite parts of York were.
Well, she said Yorkshire, I think, the county rather than the city, right?
Sure, that's true. So maybe you didn't go to York, but I'm really excited to go to York. And Yorkshire, of course, is where Downton Abbey took place. It's not where it was filmed, but but it's exciting for me.
It is. You've been to Yorkshire, actually. Hate to tell you that, Tara. You may not remember. You were on a bus, and what we did was we went to university in Lancaster. Let's pretend this is England. I hope you're not seeing this in a sort of mirror image, so I'm going to wait for it to pop up because there's a slight delay. I want to see if this okay, now I can see it. So where right here is where we went to university. That would be kind of Lancaster, right? And we got a bus, a series of buses all the way from Lancaster, and we just sort of improvised it really, and we must have got about 7 buses that day.
Yeah, and the entire day. It was amazing.
One of them we stopped off in Leeds. Leeds is right there. That's my lifeline. Leeds is my lifeline, apparently, if you believe in all that stuff. And we stopped there, and it was, Leeds is a good city actually, but we didn't get to see much of it. And then we went on to Grimsby. But she has been to Yorkshire technically. She's been to Yorkshire perhaps in the same way that I've been to Dallas. I went via airport only. We do have some more people that have joined, but I'm just going to quickly get through the questions that I've missed. The friends we were visiting, this is Huddy Coco on his trip to Nottingham. The friends we were visiting in Nottingham were just so bored with with their own town. And that's often the way, isn't it? People dislike their own town often, but you as a visitor, find a lot of joy or a lot of marvel in it. And they were talking it down, but we loved it. Yep, absolutely. I found that. Well, weirdly, I found that when I first moved to Anderson, Indiana, everyone was like, "Oh, there's nothing here in Anderson," and I was so enamored by all of the neon lights. I just thought, "Oh, it's like Las Vegas here," and then I came to find that actually the whole of the US is more or less like this, and the novelty, kind of soon wore off. But Nottingham is a fine place. Another comment from Huddy Coco. We went to ye old trip to Jerusalem. Wow, that's a place I've never been to. I've honestly, I have to say, I don't know that I've really been, because recently I was trying to figure out what's the most northern, what's the most western, what's the most southern and eastern point I've ever been, and I've not been much east of my hometown. Honestly, I think I'd have to look at a map again to try to remember what that is, but possibly Grimsby or maybe Kent. At the bottom, about the most east I've been, but I've obviously been as far west as California,
including to Spain.
I'd have to look at the map again to see what lines up. It could have been Spain. I don't have one in front of me, and as I've pointed out before on this channel, when I visualize a map, Spain is way over here and England's here. They're not sort of in line, but I can't remember how they kind of line up. The most southern I've been, though, I can tell you this, is it's a tie. It's a relative tie. I'm sure one just wins out by a few miles between Orlando and part of Tenerife off the coast of Africa. And that was a lot of fun. But no, never been to Jerusalem, never been, that far out. That's assuming you do mean the Jerusalem in Israel, as opposed to the possibly many Jerusalems that are dotted around the United States, along with, a lot of other sort of cities or countries that were renamed for US purposes. But I do want to acknowledge very quickly here, Glenn T. USA, Glenn Tucker from, how do I pronounce that one? I think I've seen this word before. It's Schenectady, New York. How do I pronounce that? Schenectady. Oh, that's hard. I like that one. So yes, quickly, Karen, let me back up here. Karen visited Whitby. I love Whitby. That's actually not too far north of my hometown. It's across the other side of the Humber, but it's a brilliant coastal town, and it's known for its vampire history, weirdly enough. If you go up to the top of the kind of, it's like not a cliffside, but there's like a hill, as I recall. And it was incredible to see the Abbey. Yes, that's right, Whitby Abbey. I remember it well. And saw York Minster as well. So you have indeed been to York. The city of York was wonderful. Yeah, York Minster, absolutely. So we've done a lot of planning around what we want to do in York. We have a friend or two there that we're going to visit. We're going to see all of the wall and the ruins, and we're going to go to Jorvik Viking Centre and just see all of these things. But York Minster is one of these things that, weirdly, we've not talked much about. But of course, you see it all around the city, and we'll be walking up to it, and we may even venture in as well. I attended, I'm not even Catholic, but I attended Mass there once by accident, and it was an interesting experience, I should say. Very echoey place, and yes, very, very interesting. And then Karen also says that she's been to Manchester and Norcaster. Is it pronounced Norcaster? I'm not so familiar with the name, honestly. So it could be just Norster, knowing us. Who knows? Interesting to know. I think I've caught up. Have I, Tara? Have I missed any comments there?
No, it looks to me like you have talked to everyone who has chatted with us so far. It looks like there are a couple of people who are looking at us without saying anything yet. So if you want to make yourselves known, make sure that you come to the chat box. And if you need any help with that, then just let me know in the comments section of our Patreon post. I would love to help you out with getting over here.
Sure.
So that you can chat with us. And yeah, Lawrence, now that there are more people here and we've actually started the party, so to speak, you can tell them a little more about your podcast, about our vision for the future, just Patreon in general, huh?
Yeah. So this, excuse me, another belch. I do this without question on every episode now. I always eat beforehand. I do apologize. So I don't know if I know I've announced this already on this very podcast, but I don't know if anyone was here at the time. It's flown by so far, but I definitely said it to myself earlier on. Starting tomorrow, I'm going to be piloting on Patreon to patrons who pledge $5 or more an exclusive podcast. This will be heard by only your good selves. It's something I just want to try out. I think doing these live streams has sort of empowered me, I think, in a small way, to know that I can at least just keep talking when the going gets tough, and often that's what podcasts are all about, I suppose. And I just want to sort of trial the idea, really, and run it by you fine people. This first one, just to give you a heads up, is really about me looking back at the last sort of week I ever spent in England 11 years ago, and how that sort of manifests in my memories and in my brain. But I'm open to so many ideas. I sort of like the idea. I like the idea of you not getting to see my stupid little face while I talk. It's probably better for you all around, if we're honest. You know what they say about people with radio faces. Yeah, no one's ever said that to my face, because they wouldn't dare. I'm big and tough, but don't comment on that. But I am just genuinely excited about it. Earlier on, Tara was out of the house, and I had this microphone all to myself, and I just sort of sat down and started talking again to myself. Again, it's a habit of mine. It's all I do. When Tara's not around, I'm constantly talking to myself and the cat, who doesn't understand English, and he makes it clear too. I understand cat. I understand what I want food is in cat quite easily. Anyway, I'm going to get back to just to see that I haven't missed any comments. I think I have. I have, yes, from Glenn T USA, Glenn Tucker. The H is silent or more likely ignored. It's more like Schenectady. All right. Well, that's good to know. So I guess the SCH is sort of treated as it is in school, as opposed to how the British sometimes treat schedule or the word schmaltz, for example. So that's interesting. Good to know. I'll add that to my list because I've got this running list. I have this really useful resource I think he lives in Michigan. His name's Jim, and he sends me constantly, and I'm very grateful to him, and I wish I was better at telling him this. He's constantly sending me lists of American place names that have sort of unusual pronunciations, and I vow to learn them all one day. Because after that day when I out loud said Mackinac Island, and just was so confident in my pronunciation of it because I'd only ever seen it written down, it made me sit up and think. It made me realize that it's not just Britain that has these sort of unusual place names when it comes to pronunciation, that America is replete with them. They're everywhere in every single state. And that is something that, as someone who has a wide and massive interest in linguistics and who took linguistics as a degree, this is something that is deeply fascinating to me. So thank you for that. And, on that score, actually, I think during the last, I believe it was the last Patreon live stream, we did share that article about a lot of the place names in the UK that do fit that bill, that have that, that tendency toward odd pronunciations according to the spelling, or rather not according to the spelling. It actually goes against the spelling of those words. Well, we think that in the Cotswolds, I've looked at a map and it seems to be packed full, the Cotswolds does, of those types of places. So expect, I think, on Patreon and perhaps on Instagram, our more visual medium, to see evidence of that as our travels do go on. We're very much looking forward to it. I'm going to take a quick water break. That's just to drink water, not to do the other one. That was I needed to make that clear. So I don't like dead air, but I also don't like a dead throat, especially when I'm talking. That would be not good, would it? So what questions do you guys have? The trip is coming up in just over a week, as I've said. Do you guys have any plans for trips? Doesn't have to be abroad, doesn't have to be to England, anywhere in the US coming up. I know we've got May, we've got the summer coming up rather quickly, and that's a good thing, because I've said it many times, Chicago's winters they've been a challenge. This one seemed to drag on, and then what was it, January, you had the polar vortex in there as well, and it's just been it will be nice to get away. In Idaho next week, actually, it's going to be in the 60s and 70s. I keep saying that to Tara, so she gets a bit jealous.
It's really unfair. I don't know how I'm going to do it.
Yeah, well, there are no beaches though in Idaho, so there is that.
Yeah, so I'm obviously going to lay out on the beach when it's 50 degrees here.
I wasn't saying that you would do that, but I was just sort of implying that, at least you have the comfort of knowing that I won't get that extra bonus of laying out on a beach in the nice weather. I will be probably walking up a mountain in my shorts, not just my shorts. Nobody wants to see that, but I will be walking high again. It'll probably be the same mountain as last time if I have the stamina to do that.
You might all also remind him to drink water, because last time that he did that and filmed that video for us, he did not have his water bottle, and I was very, very scared when he came back down that mountain after we talked.
You were bricking it. I was bricking it too. I really was quite dehydrated at the end of that because it was the height of summer. So I will take this mug, probably not this mug, probably a water flask canister to get me through it. Idaho, done it before, of course. I'm kind of excited that it's not going to be quite as hot, actually, because the last time I was in the Rockies, just in general, was that visit to Salt Lake City. And both that and the trip to Boise were just sort of really hot, and it's quite dry out there too. So doing any kind of like hiking up mountains or anything like that is not advised without water. But like I said, 60s and 70s, that should be far more doable. So if I get some time, I'm excited to go hiking, I think. And it's just interesting again that it's timed itself 1 week before going out to the UK. I honestly haven't flown since last year, but they put 2 trips. I've got 2 trips back to back again. So it's about, I suppose, maintaining the enthusiasm. One thing that might help with that is this book by Julian Barnes. It's a piece of satire called England, England. And I haven't actually started reading it yet, but I plan to do that on all of the plane journeys that we're going on. And we'll see how that works out. It's from 1998, I think. Oh, is that right? Yes, 1998, and it was updated for 2012. So I don't know if the satirical references in it still stand, given everything that's gone on in England in the last few years. But I'll be very interested to see that and how it manifest. We'll see. Maybe I'll give you an update. Maybe I'll give you a live reading. That would be really long, and you'd hopefully check out due to boredom. I wouldn't wish that on anybody. So that's that. What else? What have we got? What's been going on, Tara, that I've neglected to mention?
Well, we have obviously the postcards are going out. We need to come up with a hashtag. Maybe our patrons can help with this. A hashtag for when you guys receive your postcards and you share across social media that we've sent them to you.
Yes.
What do you want to say? What do you want to make sure that we're looking at so that we see that you've received them?
Yeah, if you happen to use social media, and there's no pressure on anybody, of course, to do that, just to facilitate rather this whole thing. But it would be really cool if, when you receive your postcards, you post a picture. It can be on social media, it could be here on Patreon, just to let us know that you received them, and use the hashtag so that everybody knows that you received them, and then that would be really cool. I'm really excited about this postcard thing. I think I said it on last week's Patreon live stream. It could have been a different live stream. It could have just been to my wife. I'm losing track now who I'm telling this to, but really excited just because of the tangibility of it and the notion that something that Tara and I have sort of put our pen on and our handwriting on is being read by someone else. It's one thing putting these videos out there sort of into the world, which is magic in itself when you really stop and think about it. But there's something old-timey about doing postcards, I think, and quite a personal touch. We're very excited to do that. We're going to do it on the train, we suspect, at high speed. Wouldn't want any less than that. And so that's really exciting that we have coming up. This week we hope to, on YouTube, we're going to be doing a bit of a conversation on our Halfway Planet episode, just about London architecture, specifically about what because we're really into architecture. We live here in Chicago. Obviously, it's brimming is a word, brimming with strong architecture here. So we're often talking about the sort of that 70s brutalist type stuff versus the Art Deco stuff from the early 20th century that you see here. Well, London as well, as you can quite imagine, is a nice mixture of Victorian architecture and modern architecture, and we just like to sort of give our opinions, really, because that's what the internet's about, isn't it? Giving opinions. But for us, it's about, in this case, it's about opinions on buildings. Very much looking forward to that. Although somebody did point out recently, not accurately in my opinion, that all I talk about when it comes to travel are the places with all of the buildings. But I don't. I mean, I've obviously talked about the Rocky Mountains, my hiking up those. I've done the Appalachian Mountains. I've done the countryside of England, not on YouTube, but in life, and would love to do that again, and probably will while we're out there, while we're in the Cotswolds specifically, and the seaside as well. So I have to defend myself on that. I don't think that I just stick to the cities. I live in a city, and I live in a city because it's sort of convenient for me to do so. I've never had a great desire to drive. So having sort of the, public transit here is very useful. And as a sort of, in the line of work that I do, it helps to live here. But in terms of travel, in terms of getting out there, I want to see all of the US. I want to see any parts of England that you throw at me, because there are stories to be told. There are things to learn. You can't just learn things about a place from looking at a map. I love maps. I love learning about capitals and places and placements of places. Say that after a few glasses of wine. Trust me, I've just tried. But I think you can really only understand a place and its culture by visiting it. And nowhere has that been more true for me of being in the US, because I've really submerged myself, literally in the case of Lake Michigan, into the culture of many parts of the US. And you come to learn, of course, that culture varies from state to state, sometimes from city to city within a state, town to town. And so I value that very much. I've kind of gone off on a tangent there. Anybody got any questions? Are you all still listening? Are you all, I don't know, have you switched over to what's on TV at this time of night? I don't even know. Saturday Night Live? It's 8:04. I'm really behind on TV, so I don't really know what's happening. But, you know, if you are, let me know. If you've got any requests. No singing. You know, my throat's going. That's why I'm drinking the water. But just let me know. You know, I was saying about the podcast, and I was saying about these live streams, and I think I said last week, when it was largely, I think, a different audience actually to those of you that have joined tonight, and that could speak to the fact that last week was Sunday and this week it is Saturday. But you know, I said last week, and I'll reiterate it again to this new audience, that I more and more I want Patreon to be a place that gives value to you, because obviously you are helping to make my YouTube channel what it is. Without it, you know, we wouldn't see. Well, you know what? I'm going to do this again. I did this on last week's Patreon video, but again, I think some of you weren't here, so I'll just do it again. I'm going to break the rule of vlogging and just pick up the webcam. I don't know if this is even a rule. You're going to be slightly blinded a second. It's not that bad, but it's just coming up here. It's this light here, you see, and this light is one of two lights. Let's switch over to the other one. This is what makes my face pale. Well, actually, no, just being British does that. But this is what makes my face sort of have just better light all around. You know, it makes my videos have a greater vibrancy to them, I think, and it makes them just, I think, just look better overall. And you paid for that. You know, your pledges went directly toward this technology. It went directly toward a new camera that we've purchased that has an astronomically good zoom on it that we're really excited about. So those are the fruits that, you know, come out of the tree. Sorry about that metaphor of your pledges. And I just wanted you to know that. I want you to sort of visually see it. It's hard for me to drop in the middle of a regular YouTube video and just say, hey, look at our new lights, everyone, you know, because I think for most people, they're not interested in that. I think it's just the content for the most part. But you did this. I mean, you really are helping to shape and make better this show. And I'm deeply grateful for that. And anyway, long roundabout way of saying the way in which I want to display that gratitude, I think, is by creating more value for you on Patreon itself and giving you things that are exclusive. And, you know, don't feel bad if you can't make a live stream. That's absolutely fine. You know, we understand people have lives. It's great when you do. And I really enjoy interacting in this medium, in this format. But the other things, the podcasts, the occasional pieces of music that we put out there, and just all of these things, you know, it's when I first started doing it, I wasn't really sure which direction to go in. I didn't know what people would want to see. I didn't know what I should really be doing. And I think we've just got a better understanding of that over the last 6 months or so, I think, just from the various polls we've put out. And I should say, by the way, that Tara has been very diligent about that. She's been putting those polls out on Patreon that you'll see occasionally. What that does is it gives us great feedback over what you want to see and when and how and why. And is there another one? Where? Well, where is on YouTube, so that we don't get too much of a say over that. But you know, that's really useful. So whenever you see those polls or you see any of these questions that ask you for your input on that, please feel free to give us that input. It's so valuable to us and so useful, and it it helps us to create A, better content, and B, to understand how best to create value out of what we do on Patreon. Just going to return to the comments just to make sure I haven't missed any. Karen just says, I'm still here. Good. So am I. Contrary to popular belief, I am still here, which is amazing given the time it is. It's 8:08 and I'm flying out tomorrow. But I'm actually really awake right now. About an hour ago, I was really tired. I don't know why. It'd been a busy day and a busy week in general preparing for this trip to Idaho. But these live streams tend to give me a sort of second wind. I mean, when you know that people are listening to you, I suppose you make that effort to motivate yourself, or it just does motivate you by its very nature, which is really nice, actually. That I'm finding the more of these live streams I do, the more comfortable I am with them. I just hope others are. Most of you, if not tonight, have in the past week or so expressed that you like these live videos. I hope that is still the case. And, I think I made the distinction, hopefully clear on YouTube and also the last Patreon video, that the distinction between the live streams we do on Patreon and YouTube is this. On YouTube, we will be coming up with a subject. Let's say it's the trip to England, and we focus only on that, and we receive questions from people about that. Whereas on Patreon, it's just a chance for us to just talk about anything, largely me, because I'm the one, here on the camera, obviously, but I'm more than happy, as you've seen, to field your questions. So, keep those coming if you have any, anything. And we'll see. We're going within reason. I don't want to give away my bank details or my mother's maiden name.
We should make sure that everyone knows also that when we're in England, we still plan on doing these weekly live chats with everyone.
Yes.
And from England itself, so we'll have a lot to talk about when it comes to our trip and what we're filming and what we're doing, and who we've seen and all those good things. So make sure that you tune into those. They'll be at probably different times than usual. Yeah. So keep in mind that it might be a little bit earlier or a little bit later than we're used to. We haven't quite ironed out those details yet, but we'll let you know as soon as we know.
Yeah, it's important to mention. I mean, there's a time difference, obviously. And I think just thinking about this, some of you are probably on Central or Mountain Time, it looks like, from the places that you said you're in. I think all Central, actually. It looks like Hooded Cobra Commander 788, whose shortened version I've suddenly forgotten, is back. Hello. What did you miss? I don't know, because I don't know how long you've been gone. But there's been quite a lot. If you did miss anything on this live stream, of course, it can be watched back later on. But just to say on that, Hooded Cobra Commander 788 and everybody else who's on right now, with those live streams, those Patreon live streams that we will be doing from the UK, as Tara said, they will be at different times and as yet undecided. Part of that is because of that time difference. I mean, where I am, I'm 6 hours behind the UK, and I think he says JK. I think from what I know of most of you here today, you're possibly on Central Time, or in Glenn's case on Eastern Standard Time. So there's going to be various differences for you guys too. We'll probably, to make it easy and consistent, we'll probably still list it as Central Time, so that you can base it around that for your purposes. But yeah, I mean, the time zones are going to be all over the shop come those live streams. I know that last week we had people in California on. Today we have Glenn from New York. We have Sean on Mountain Time. Hello, Sean. Just visited, or rather just announced himself. And we have Oklahoma and Kansas. I think, well, you're Central, right? You're not quite Mountain Time. Is that correct? I guess that Oklahoma and Kansas might be close to Mountain, but I'm thinking you're Central. But I could be making that up. I deal in my sort of day job. I deal with different states, so often have to learn the different time zones states are on. But actually, Oklahoma and Kansas aren't ones I've had the fortune of working with just yet. But hopefully I'll get there at some point. I'm just going to have another sip, another water break, as I said earlier on. Yes, I wouldn't do this, if I'm making an actual video. Obviously, you slice those. Let's see. Way west Kansas is mountain. Yes, I wondered if some of it might be, but obviously Kansas, quite a big state, isn't it? Like a lot of those states out west. By out west, of course, I usually, when I say that, refer to west of the Mississippi. I think that's generally how that term is used these days. And Tara, again, yay, I'm so glad you made it, Sean. Sorry about the technical issues. Oh, yes.
Yeah, I don't know what it is about Patreon and our YouTube feeds, but for whatever reason, they don't like to play very nicely with each other. So I'm so sorry about that. And I'm trying really hard to figure out how to fix that in the future. And every time that we do this, it's going to get better, I promise.
I've got good news for you. You're off the hook. Sean says, not a problem, Tara. So you're good. You're good. We don't need to apologize. I'm joking. Yes. And Karen confirms that Wichita is Central Time. I'm genuinely, I often get those two words mixed up in sentences. Who else does that? I bet a lot. I'm genuinely fascinated, and this is going to sound really nerdy, but I am genuinely fascinated by time zones and where they intersect within states. And that's from somebody who lived in Indiana. Indiana's a weird one because it's mostly on Eastern, but there's a portion, of course, up towards Chicago that's on Central, and it does this weird, like, not a line. It's not a straight line. It does this curving thing that is also on Central Time, and you see that in different parts of the US as well. But it's all fascinating to me, and I genuinely welcome these conversations. And Hooded Cobra Commander 788 says, excuse me, I ate before this, so trying not to let one out. Okay, I love the patrons live stream. Your public live streams are quite the draw, and the live chat goes really fast. This is a bit more leisurely. Yes, it is. And what I love about this is the ability, obviously because of that, to be able to respond, hopefully, to each and every one of you. There could be a time in the future, and I hope I have this problem one day, where there are so many patrons that we have the same issue as we do on the main YouTube channel. But I think I would still try to take the time to respond as best I can. It's just it's the gratitude in me, really. It's so meaningful to me when we do these Patreon ones, just for the reasons that I laid out earlier on in the broadcast. It feels weird saying broadcast, even
That's what we're doing.
after all this time. It feels like, oh, I'm on television. I'm on the broadcast, right? It's weird because, and you'll hear this tomorrow in tomorrow's podcast. There's another one. I'm doing a podcast now because that's who I am. I podcast these days. It's a verb. I talked about how 11 years ago I was aware of the idea of YouTube.com. It was new. Obviously, it was new by about 2 years at that point. But I was also aware that some people had channels, right, on YouTube, and they had subscribers or followers even in those early days. And I just thought, who are these people? They must be just someone. This must be so unattainable, something I could never even think to dream of. Okay, great. I'll go on with the other artistic ventures that I'm going down, because I just didn't get it. It was new. And it still took me a good 9 years after the premiere, if that's the right phrase, of YouTube to go down that avenue myself. So all of this language is still alien to me in a kind of exciting and novel way, I should say. Looks like we've got a couple more. No, I was wrong. No, I was right. Hooded Cobra Commander 788 does confirm that it is a broadcast, and it is, because at the start I had to click a button, a green button no less, that said start broadcast. So it's confirmed by more than one avenue that this is indeed, I am broadcasting right now to millions, to 8. but that's fine because that's how these should be. It's this intimate setting, as it were. I really
so
enjoy
I'd like to know whether or not Hoodie Coco was gone because he got his food along with Mrs. Hoodie Coco.
Yeah, did the food arrive or get finished being made? Hooded Cobra. I'm just going to call you Hooded Cobra now. So I'm a rebel. I'm a rebel. That's how I do this. It's another water break.
Also, I don't know if you've seen my website or not, oldfashionedaf.com, but I will say I did write another post yesterday, and I was thinking about my 19 for 2019, which is this concept of writing 19 different goals for this year. And one of them was to get a massage for every month of this year, which I know sounds like really, really ridiculous.
It is.
And very extra. But you know what? I'm a little extra. I'm not going to lie. So I haven't done that very well, and I need another massage now because it's actually been since February that I got one. So if you know of any places in England that specifically like in the Yorkshire area or in the area around the Cotswolds or Bath, those types of places where I can get a decent massage, please let me know.
Karen, any day spas in Whitby that you know of? I personally can't remember any because I don't really do all that. I mean, not that I, don't like a good sort of like massage or, I was about to say pedicure. I've never had one because it's not my style, guys, right? I think, I don't know. But I don't know. I'm not privy to, who joined? Oh, hello, Annette. Sorry, I was broken away by this riveting conversation about massages potentially in Whitby.
Well, and I want to get Lawrence one too, P.S. Not just me. I'm not, that extra that I can't include somebody else in this. Good
to know, Annette. I've not really tested this on phone. I'm not really privy to how the chat feature could or would or might not even work on that.
Oh, it's rough.
Is it? It's rough.
That's what I was just doing the entire time that you were talking.
Well, and I imagine because you'd have to do it with just your thumbs as well, so that'd be
no, you can't even get to the video. I don't know what it is about Patreon. Again, it's not playing very nicely with our patrons.
Oh, I see. Right,
guys, I'm trying.
Yeah.
I
am. Yes, I agree, Hooded Cobra. The more we can have you on the show, the better. And by the way, I've had a few people say, oh, you need to let her be on the show more. I was begging her to come on the show. She was refusing for the longest time, and then eventually came on and realized that yes, of course, naturally they all love her, and so now she's on every week.
You'll know. Those 10 pounds, they really do, they show on the camera.
Well, we get paid in dollars. Oh, you mean the weight measurement? Yeah. No, and that's it. But of course, in these live streams too, I'd love Tara to be on. As we said earlier, for those of you just joining, we are hoping to do that. We need a second kind of camera and potentially mic to be able to achieve it, just because we could both sit here at once. It's just someone does have to be in the control room, because once we get talking, it's very easy for us to lose track of your comments. And I'm doing, the best I can, I think. But specifically in those YouTube live streams, the other day when we did it, it was so useful to have Tara in the control. We're calling it the control room. It's another term that just sounds pretentious to me, but is what we're calling it. She would put up some questions that weren't, we didn't receive donations for them. They were just sort of regular questions that came in that I shouldn't be missing. And she'd put them up on the TV set behind this camera. And it was so useful. So she's needed in the control room is what I'm saying. She's my producer. She's my wife. She's my lawyer. I keep saying that.
I am so not your lawyer.
You're not my lawyer. That is true. You're not my lawyer. And she is, my inspiration. So, take that for what it is. Looks like we have, yes, beautiful Tara deserves a great massage, and it should be great too, which is why I can't give it.
Lawrence
and I
is
think
really not great at that. It's true.
No, I'm not.
He tries. He does his best.
Yeah.
He's better at other things.
I provide the accent and the dimples. What more do you need?
Other things, but that's okay. He does pretty well, though.
All right. I supply the tennis equipment, and neither of us play. So Hooded Cobra Commander 70. I'll just call you H. That is way easier for me. The Illinois bar is calling about someone practicing law without a license. Yeah.
It's not me, I swear. I am a former teacher. That is it.
Yeah.
I promise. I let my license expire, and I am happy about it, but
we should
never claimed to be anything other than a teacher. That was Lawrence.
For the purposes of humor, we should handwrite you a license just to have on air whenever I refer to you as my
I will
my
not
lawyer.
play party to this.
I'm happy to dance alone at this party, but you will be brought into it. We'll see. Yes. Just really bored. Just joined. Hello and welcome back.
You still got 7 minutes with us?
Yes, indeed. Throw all of your questions at me. Not literally. That would physically hurt my cheeks and forehead. Darn, I lost track of time. Just got here. Hey, hands to the best of us. And, you know, I said it earlier on. None of you, of course, are under any obligation to have to turn up to these. We love it when you do because, you know, it's brilliant to interact with you in the comments in the manner in which we do. And, you know, the great thing about these this type of live stream versus the more sort of topic oriented live stream of YouTube is that they're quite unpredictable. I find myself having conversations on here that I don't usually get to have. Just the one earlier on about time zones, as I said, you know, sounds nerdy, but that kind of thing fascinates me. I didn't know I was going to be getting on this live stream today and talking about these. I didn't know that I would learn with absolute certainty that Wichita is Central Time, although I had a general idea that it was. So it's just these little things. I'm getting fed bits of knowledge here and there from you fine folks, and that's very useful to me. So we've got some more comments here. Let's see. Kim K's services will be available soon. Is that Cardassian?
I'm assuming so.
Does she do what kind?
Like law services, maybe? I don't know.
Oh, that's what she is. Yeah,
she a lawyer,
she's going into the law profession. Yeah, I don't know the full extent of it.
Wow, that's weird.
I thought you meant Sean that she's becoming a masseuse because we were just talking about that too. I don't
know how I feel about either of those things for her.
Here's the thing. I read a tweet recently. This was the greatest thing I've ever read. And the tweet said, I learned everything I needed to know. No, I learned everything about the Cardassians against my will. And I just thought it was perfect. That's kind of where I am in many ways. I couldn't tell you most things about that family. Annette looks like, oh, I see. So when Lost in the Pond is mentioned, it gets this orange rectangle around it. That's cool.
Fun. Not for me, because I guess I'm just an admin and I'm not you.
I see. But Annette says, my 19-year-old just walked in and said, is that Lost in the Pond? I didn't realize he had such good taste. Oh, that's amazing. Do you know what? It's funny. That's a very similar story to somebody I work with. One of my colleagues who works in HR, she emailed me to say that she was sitting down to watch one of my videos. And firstly, I didn't know that she watched my videos or anyone at work watched my videos. And it actually got me slightly worried, especially since she works in HR and I am me. But she said that she was just watching an episode and in walked her son, who I know has a degree in linguistics like me. She and I have often talked about this. And he said something very similar. He said something like, oh, I didn't know you watch Lost in the Pond. That's crazy. And it's beautiful when things like that happen. You know, I think that often it'll happen between like-minded people, perhaps, you know, son and daughter, et cetera, et cetera. But there've been occasions where you'll be out on the street. I think I mentioned about when I was in Idaho Falls and I got recognized there, and it happened just a couple of months ago in Chicago here as well. So when those things happen, just like using the word broadcast in relation to something I'm doing, it's quite unusual to hear those stories. But in a way, it's flattering. I think I play a performance when I'm on YouTube, and there is a side of me that plays this sort of mock arrogance, I think, in some capacity. But in real life, I'm genuinely humbled, I think, by those sort of those moments of serendipity or even just recognition on the part of the general public. I've never done that. I've just referred to people that watch me as the general public. So this is getting silly now. Okay, can you record these and offer them to be watched afterwards by patrons? As far as I know, you should be able to, right, on Patreon.
So the way that this will work, and I'm actually going to work a little bit on this tomorrow, but we already have the Patreon exclusive video. I don't know what it's called. Like it's a playlist essentially of all the videos that we've done specifically for Patreon so far, and hopefully a lot of you have seen that in the emails that we've been sending you. I'm gonna send all of these videos to there, and in theory, I should be able to do that because every time that we do a live stream, it should have a playback mode afterward that you should be able to access indefinitely. So for those of you who either just join like just really bored, or who really can't even make it at all, you can play these back as often as you like on that playlist as soon as I have them up there.
Yep, should be able to. And just to note, we have about 2 minutes remaining. So I think my rule here is going to be when I see we have like 2 minutes left and I make that kind of announcement, although Tara would ordinarily do it, any comments that I see that are there at the time of that announcement, I'll get through all of those. If any more comments are added now, I probably won't get to them here. Unfortunately, we might be able to answer them offline later on, but I'll go with what we've got now. So let's see. Karen, have you heard from Joel and Leah? So yes, I put that video out, of course, talking about their supposed impending trip to Chicago. They told me that there's going to be a delay on that trip, they think. And they're going to be hoping to do it at some point, but not as soon as they'd intended. But yes, we've been in touch, and I think Leah, in fact, started following Lost in the Pond because she has her own YouTube channel, as does Joel, and I think that she followed me, but he's been more quiet. I think he might have taken to heart something I said back at Christmas, which I didn't mean meanly at all, but I just was lumping them in with me as being. We often say something, about Britain and America, specifically America, I think this was, without looking at facts, and how I think it's important that we look at facts and all that. But anyway, I didn't mean to cause a war there. But yes, they've been in touch. And H says, I will try to join the Patreon live streams as often as possible, but the weekends are often filled with my own video work, and that's completely understandable and cool that you're doing video work. Glad to see. If I can't be here in person, I'll be here in spirit. That's good to know, meaning I'll be dead and I'll haunt the place. Not so good to know. Please don't die, but do make videos and, let us know about them. Sean, she has no degree in anything, but is reading about the law. This is Kim K. California will allow her to take her bar exam by simply reading.
Well, we see, as far as I'm aware, she has all the time in the world to read, so maybe she'll just be this kick-ass lawyer that none of us knew that we needed to see coming.
I don't rule out anything in life anymore. So you never know with that. Although on that very score, in England, when we take a degree in something, it's a kind of an antiquated term, but we used to say that in my case, I read English at university. So I've only read to get a degree in a sense, although I do have a degree. Must make that clear. Yes, and H says, yeah, I believe California is the only place you can sit for the bar without having a law degree. Huh. Interesting. And then finally, the final comment here today, question. Tolkien was a linguist, indeed. Have you read his works on language? I don't think I did. I think when I was at university, we looked mostly actually at contemporary linguists in terms of the textbooks that we would have to take out. I don't recall looking at anything by Tolkien, and I would have known as well, because actually when I was at university was when the Lord of the Rings films were very much at the height of their powers. It was 2002, the year Two Towers came out. I don't recall that being the case, but I'd be very interested to look into it. He's a very astute man on language, obviously, and I've long admired, if not so much the books themselves, I've long admired his use of the word eleventy. So that's always good. Okay, so that's all we've got time for today. I'm being cut off in the middle of my outro. We go from being broadcast professionals to, and she's joining me. You're going to finish this then.
I am. So, hello, everyone. I am hoping that you can help us out with something. And it is my understanding that we're going to be sending some postcards to most of you, actually, who are here today. I would like, now that you have seen our live streams a couple of times now, for you to maybe share on social media or share with your friends and family that you've been watching these live streams and that they can get a postcard from us, because we have a goal to try to send at least 100 postcards to patrons. And we're almost there. I think we're over 70 now, I want to say.
It's up there, yeah.
It's a pretty, it's a high number. So if we can send a postcard to over 100 patrons, then that will make my heart happy, because I like writing postcards.
Yeah, it might hurt my wrist, but I'm willing to sacrifice that for the good of postcard sending. Yeah, cool. Great idea. That's actually off the fly. I like that. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. There was a bit of a break since our April flurry of videos. We put a new one out today that we've been working on for a while on our visit to C2E2. But there'll be more videos in the works for while we are gone. Until then, keep watching us on Patreon and have a wonderful rest of your weekend. All right. Bye.
Good night.
Good night. I've got to remember how I end these things again. I always forget. Yeah. Oh, come on, Google.